Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, guys. Welcome to Grue. Thank you so much for taking time and coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, the first thing I wanted to say is I saw the film. It's a really good film, and it basically follows a man who lives in Tokyo that takes a trip to a ranch, and the ranch isn't doing well, and he wants to make a profit. And I mean, I won't get into like the whole 9 yards of it because I want people to watch it. But like, what inspired you both to want to come on board for the film?
Yeah, thanks so much. So about 30 years ago, I had done an apprenticeship with a Japanese filmmaker named Yoji Yamada, a very well-known filmmaker who's still making films in Japan. He's 91 years old. He just finished the 9th film of his career. And shortly after that experience, being an apprentice to him, I saw this obscure little article in Outside Magazine. It was about a ranch in Montana that was owned by a Japanese company, and the name of the article was Samurai Slickers. And so it was just this idea of, Japanese workers coming to Montana, this very fish out of water kind of experience, becoming cowboys. Just something about that really was intriguing to me, and it's kind of stuck in my mind for 30 years. And I had wanted to make a feature film. I've had a long career in television and documentary, and made several short films when I was in film school at UCLA. But always, felt like at some point I'm going to make a feature film. And I thought this might be a good idea, just the beginning of an idea to make a film. And I told Brigham about it. We've been friends for a long time, and he's amazing body of work, amazing career with Disney. And I was just fortunate that he kind of sparked this idea. We started developing it together, and to figure out where this story might lead. It was very kind of interesting and freeing journey to just like open it up and see where it might lead.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what about Brigham? Like,
yeah, like Mark said, I came on board when he sort of came and pitched this to me a couple of years ago, and I was really intrigued. I was intrigued because it was a story that I could feel that could be compellingly told, and also just the manner in which it wanted to be told was in the context of a small independent movie that really only had to be true to itself. It didn't have to engineer itself to be for some broader audience or for some certain demographic or anything else. It's the only question you had to ask is, what's the most interesting version of this character's journey, and how do you tell it in a way that that feels absolutely sort of real? And that was honestly a big part of the attraction for me, was to step into a project like that, because I hadn't had the opportunity until then to work on a truly independently minded project. So it's not just independent in terms of its construction and its financing and the lack of oversight, which is great, but it's also just in the idea itself. It wasn't chasing any certain genre. We had the hardest time just even categorizing what this movie was. It's sort of a drama, it's sort of a comedy, it's introspective, it's quirky at times, but it doesn't fit neatly into a box. But that's also, again, the charm of working on a movie, because it doesn't have to. And so that to me was liberating and really, really intriguing. So I said, yeah, let's try it.
Wow. Okay. Nice. And how was for both of you, like, how was your experience, like, making the film, working on it, and now putting it out for everyone to see?
We had the great fortune of working with tremendous collaborators and artists on this. Couldn't have asked for a better, just crew to set this up, in terms of the development of it, with Brigham, with Dave Boyle and Ayako Fujitani, our screenwriters, brought tremendous insight and just just knocked the screenplay out of the park from, the beginning. Brought really great ideas. But the process of the film, because it was, we had this small crew, it really felt like a family. We had this amazing crew in Montana, these local craftsmen. Our director of photography, Oscar Jimenez, is a tremendous talent, and somebody that I personally really loved working with day to day, and just kind of figuring out together the visual language of the film. I couldn't have asked for a better experience for my first feature film as a director, and just every day was kind of a joy. I had some moments going into this that were very frightening.
Oh, really?
Well, because I had a long career in, as I said, in television and documentary and different things, and along that journey, I kind of always told myself, at some point I'm going to make a feature film, and I would tell myself, I'm good at making a feature film. Like, you kind of have this idea of like what you're going to do, and then when it comes to the time to do it, then those doubts can creep in, and you're kind of like, but can I do it? Am I good at this? Will this work out? What if I fall on my face? And so I had those very real fears, but I kind of just went into it saying, like, I'm just going to embrace this experience. I'm going to enjoy this, and I'm going to do this with a lot of love, and hopefully, and that's what everybody else brought to this. A lot of love, a lot of artistry. And so it was a really beautiful experience. The actual process of making this film, and I think that comes through in the film itself.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think it was great. It was smooth in the sense that creatively, there was always a lot of harmony in terms of, from the early stages of development to the script notes to the shooting of the movie. And that's oftentimes where you can have real strife kind of pop up when people are always sort of pulling in different directions. I've seen it happen dozens of times. And so that was never the case. There was always challenges coming up in production, especially when you're talking about a small production. We had very little resources. We had no safety net. We had weather issues. We had contract issues. We had all the kinds of things that you deal with. But the beauty was that we had a small decision-making team, and we could tackle these issues, and we didn't have to manage, to a broader, constituency that was around us. We could be very, I think, economic in our decisions and our solutions, and that was part of the thrill too. It's just that there's no one else around to second guess what, and so you would own all of your mistakes, but that's kind of how you want it, because you don't want to make other people's mistakes. You want them to be your own. And so that, but like Mark said, the overall experience was super smooth. We had great collaborators. We had beautiful locations, and wonderful performers that came and gave us everything we could have hoped for.
Yeah, and that's the thing you were just saying. Like watching the movie, I love how the film looks, like all different areas where you filmed at and stuff, like with different spots, with different areas. Did you wind up filming it?
Well, I mean, it starts with Tokyo, of course, and we wanted to really, really make sure that you're in Tokyo. So we took pains to show the streets and to film. We did this one scene where Hideki and Ayako are walking toward the camera through this very, very busy street. We didn't have any permits to be there, filming there, like waiting for the right moment of things, weaving in and through. And then we had a large number of our Japanese crew in that shot. In fact, our screenwriter, Dave Boyle, is in that shot, because they're the only ones that aren't wearing masks. And we wanted to not have it look like we're still in the middle of the pandemic. So we filled that street with some of our crew that weren't wearing masks. But so it started with Tokyo, and really that contrast is so important, showing the cold blue, fast Tokyo, and then you land in Montana, and it's just, there's nothing, just like quiet. And we shot in the Paradise Valley of Montana, just an amazing location. And we found, or our location manager found for us, introduced us to this ranch, the O'Hare Ranch. And it was just amazingly perfect. It was not a brand new ranch, just the right age of ranch, with really interesting angles and real cattle. It's a real working ranch. And so we worked with them, like during the cattle drive. All we had to do was ask them, okay, where would you normally take the cattle? Where can you take them from and to? And can we shoot that? And can we make this look like it's a really long, couple of days journey or whatever, or at least a full day? And we were able to do that with their help. So really incredible, incredibly fortunate to film up in Montana in these beautiful locations.
Wow, nice. And from working on the ranch for the film, being on the ranch, did you both like learn anything from being on the ranch that you didn't know about ranch life, like farm life?
A whole lot.
100%. Yeah.
That.
Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, well, one of the things we learned was the unpredictability of the weather. And the first day of filming, it started to snow quite hard. And
Really?
And we didn't have that in the script, nor did we think, because we were shooting this one scene that was going to have to be done over several days, nor did we think that we would be able to maintain that snow if we shot it. And so we were doing, kind of cover sets inside, hoping that this snow would clear up and we'd be able to shoot outside later on in the day. And I mean, like the incredible amount of snow that was coming down was really amazing. But our first AD and producer Jerry Rafter, who's local and had found all these great crew people for us there, she assured us, she's like, just wait a couple hours, this is going to blow over, it's going to melt, we're going to be able to film, it's okay. And sure enough, it did. It's really amazing.
Yeah. We had, obviously the ranch was, the business of the ranch was ongoing every time we were there or working there. And so, yeah, we were privy to see how it worked. And one of the things, we learned, and we had a lot of people that were both on our crew and some people that were even on camera that were really familiar with the work. And sometimes they would just take some of their downtime and help them out. We started early on when the calves were young in calving season, and later, it's branding season. And we would kind of watch this process, because that's, it is as a beef ranch, their whole investment is in the next generation of these cattle. And so, and then they allowed us to shoot the actual movement of the herd from pasture to pasture. And so, yeah, I mean, we didn't become experts, but we learned a lot, and we learned to be incredibly sensitive to the needs of the actual day-to-day operations of the ranch. And they also handled sort of fly fishing groups that came and fished on their spring creek, which is one of the greatest in the world. So we saw all this, and we learned a lot, and we were able to use a lot, because again, the watchword for us was to stay grounded and authentic. And honestly, one of the greatest licenses, and I didn't realize this until we were in the movie, was the luxury of how many ranch hands we had put in our story, in our fictional story. Because the reality is, on a Montana ranch there, it's usually just the family. And if they're going to have help when they need to go rope and brand or whatever, or move the cattle, they're going to ask their neighbors, their friends, and they'll come and help out. But it's rare to have the case where you actually would have on the payroll, because we went ahead and imagined that there was 6 to 8 employees around at any given time. And it was sort of important for the themes of our story. But the reality is, on the ranch, it is much, much more lean and mean, because it has to be.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I never knew that. Okay. Like you would think in like a farm or ranch, like you would pay people to help you, but okay.
Well, yeah, there's the key, is that, you need to keep, if you're going to maintain profits and profitability, you can't really hire a huge group like that, not by today's market standards. And so we learned a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
We also ended up filming. We had originally intended to film in the fall, in September. And then when we cast Arata, our main actor, he wasn't going to be available until May. And so we had to the filming until May, which immediately meant that we weren't going to be in the same season, that quinoa wasn't going to be growing at that time. And so we had to figure out how to make quinoa grow spring. But the other thing that happened was, because we were filming in May as opposed to in the fall, when all of the snow on the far off mountains would have been completely gone. And so we had this amazing, these amazing vistas with snow on the mountains in the background, which kind of makes sense if there was like an early snow in the fall and you're getting your crop of quinoa harvesting. But we had to do a lot in the color correction of the film to kind of take out the early spring greens and make them a lot more kind of brown and yellow to make it look more like we're in the fall. So, and hopefully that I think it looks right, and we've had people that have said it looks right. So yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. And without giving too much away about the film, of course, like, is there a certain scene that you both like most?
Well, I often think about two really key scenes, and one is the quinceanera, where Hideki has this experience. He's a fish out of water, and also Javier, he's a fish out of water on this ranch. They become friends, and then through circumstances, Hideki ends up at the quinceanera of Javier's niece, and it's an experience where he starts to kind of, for the first time, really feel something. And even though he doesn't understand what's being said, he sees this father in this very tender moment with his daughter talking about her, and there's this tree, and that has to do with an experience that Hideki had before, and we have this kind of just long, slow push in that goes into Hideki as he's experiencing this, and he starts to become emotional, and I love that scene because it's so pivotal to his journey and where things kind of start to turn for him. So that's definitely one for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a lot. I feel like I want to have a different answer every time I hear the question. But I like these transformational moments in the character's journey, and Arata's performance, I think, is so subdued but so effective. And he, at a certain point, he finally gets his suitcase back, and silently we just witness that he realizes that his old clothes no longer suit him, metaphorically and literally, and so he goes to a little clothing store, and we had this wonderful character actor, George DeVries, who showed up as Virgil, and they have their miscommunications, but he gets him outfitted, and there's a slow camera move, and Mark, I think, set up with Oscar a really nice shot where we're not seeing our character until such time we find him in the mirror, and he sees himself, and we see it all at the same time. And I really, really enjoy that moment, just in terms of how it worked executionally, how our department did with the set, everything that worked in synthesis to make the moment kind of work. And I love that. That's, to me, is movie magic.
We haven't watched the film too many times with an audience, but that does seem to be one of the moments where there's an audible kind of almost like a cheer, when they see him for the first time in those clothes.
Yeah.
And that, to me, like there's a way that you could make this film and this story that's very kind of gimmicky and kind of reaching for the humor and kind of like almost like a gung-ho or something, like not that, but it when he first puts on those clothes, it's still a very grounded story, and very authentic kind of feeling moment. And so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, like what I like about him is, like, it's definitely like a story that, I mean, in my eyes, like it's definitely a story about him adding another layer to himself, like a self the discovery type thing, and he found like another layer to add to his like person, and
Yeah,
it
as you say, more of a self-discovery, finding
yeah,
something already inside of him that's not really apparent that he brings out.
exactly.
Like adding something on. It's really, and we had a lot of discussions about this, that it really had to be a story about, you know, him finding something inside of him that's very Japanese that he brings to this experience. And that's where the hot springs and the onsen came into this story, because we were trying to think of like what's very Japanese that he might, you know, bring to, you know, Montana, that's also maybe there. And we started thinking, oh, you know, like what if there was this hot springs, and he experiences the hot springs not in a way that somebody in Montana would, but somebody from Japan would experience, and what meaning that would have to him. And it ultimately led us into a point where then we were able to create that really beautiful scene between he and Keiko, Hideki and Keiko, that wasn't in the original version of the screenplay.
Oh,
So yeah.
oh wow. And like what I like about films is the score. Like I love listening to the when I'm watching a movie, like the score sets up the scene. And how did you guys come up with like the right person for the score for the film?
We got lucky, like in a lot of cases, because you know, we couldn't go out and, you know, hire Hans Zimmer for our movie. You know, we had to find people, the right people, and in this case, we had a mutual friend who knew this composer Chad. We hadn't met him before, but he knew. Our friend works in music. He helps produce scores and other pieces, and he said, "This is the guy, Chad." And he felt that way. Our friend felt that way because Chad had worked on a lot of productions that were sort of Asian American co-productions, both for China and Japan. He's fluent in Japanese, and he just has a strong interest culturally, all right, in East Asia. And so, but that alone doesn't qualify you to necessarily, you know, nail the score for this given movie. But it gave us, you know, interest in talking to him. And you know, Mark, you had a good conversation with him, and he felt like the right choice. But everything is a leap of faith. And the very first cue we heard, I remember Mark played, I think it came on your phone, we might have been on the plane, we might have been scouting, but it was this lonely little tune where you had someone whistling over the track. And it smacked a little bit of Morricone, you know, from the heyday, but also felt like it had a lot of emotional depth to it. And it's the piece that plays over this wonderful moment when there's a phone call home and you hear him saying how great things are going and we see things are going terribly. And so it's all the irony of the scene underscored by this moment. And I think that's the first inkling of like, I think Chad's going to really figure this out. And it's a long journey to get to the end of the score where we did. And I'll say, and I think I can speak for Mark when he said, we feel like Chad just really over delivered. Like he went beyond what we thought he would be able to do with the score. Not that we thought he was limited, but just that anyone could do, because you have to try to match, you know, your temp score, and you can steal the best possible cues when you're temping a movie. So it's very, very hard for any composer to match the level of that. And he just did. And in many cases, I think did much better. So it was really, really wonderful.
Had a lot of discussions early on with him about that the film music really needed to just kind of undergird the emotion of each scene, that it shouldn't be too obviously Asian influence or too obviously Western influence, that it's really about finding the emotion of the moment. But then he weaves in these traditional instruments from Japan and from the American West. And he just did such an amazing job, and shout out to him, because we're early on our festival journey, but he just we just won Best Music Award for the
Awesome.
Festival. And so we're proud of the work that Chad did on the film.
Wow, nice. And this is a question that has nothing to do with the film. I usually ask my guests this since I'm a big horror fan. It's Halloween season, and are there any horror films that you both like to watch for the season?
I'm gonna name two, especially just in light of the fact that we have just, presenting this this Japanese American co-production. There's two great Japanese horror films that if someone hasn't seen it, they need to dial it up on streaming. One is Masaki Kobayashi's Kwaidan, which is an omnibus. It's 4 shorts, but they're great Japanese ghost stories. And the other one is Kanedo Shindo's Onibaba, which is another sort of really scary psychological folk tale. So anyway, there you have it.
I would maybe mention a film that Jun Kunimura was in called The Wailing.
Yes.
I would definitely check that out.
He's phenomenal in that movie.
Wow, I never heard of the two films you just said, but I'm definitely gonna look for it now, because I'm always trying to find new horror films to get.
Well, Rocco, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And the last question I'll ask you guys is, where could fans follow you both? Where could they follow the film?
Yeah, hashtag Tokyo Cowboy Film. We're on Instagram as Tokyo Cowboy Film. We have a website, www.tokyocowboyfilm. And on outlets like this, we're hoping to get some good stories out there. So we're grateful for you spreading the word.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you both for taking time. It's been really nice chatting, and thank you again for giving me those 2 horror films that I didn't hear of.
Yes. No. Let me know how you experience those. I'll be curious.
Okay. I definitely will. Thanks again for coming on and doing this.
All right. Thanks, Rocco.